Heyo.
Oh.
Hello.
It's kind of a tame intro, actually.
Oh,
They make a ton of
delicious.
noise. What? Your water?
Oh, this water is high quality.
Indeed. Almost as high quality is this episode of Beyond the Basement, the complete
Attack on Titan podcast.
Rachel joined that time.
Yeah.
Woo!
She's Rachel. He's Eric. I'm Peter. That was so loud in Becca's ear.
She's the only one with headphones on, so I don't know how loud I am. We should all have headphones on, but listen, we don't have that kind of dough around here. But we could if you, our faithful viewers, would be so kind as to check out the links in the descriptions below, whether that be YouTube or the podcast or whatever. There's some sweet Attack on Titan merch. We get a little kickback from that. Anyway, that shameless plug out of the way. Let us begin.
Your money.
You see
Just
this?
kidding.
This is us riding on a Segway.
Yes, we're segueing.
Speaking of Segway, you could be watching us right now
On a
live
Segway.
on Facebook and be able to see all the hilarious, ridiculous stuff we do.
If you were to watch, oh dang it, I was too slow on the update because I
I
was
give him everything.
I was trying to make this look like we had a scripted ad, like
Yeah.
you and I were planning this, and I was like, if you would join us, on YouTube, because you just did Facebook, and now I'm doing YouTube,
Okay.
so I didn't see the punch coming.
Man, I just don't have enough places to watch cool content in my life.
Well, you could if you were to subscribe to Beyond the Basement, the complete Attack on Titan podcast YouTube channel show.
Killing it. Killing the business. And you could be
I'm
killing the
dead
business
now.
too if you send us an email.
Yeah. All right.
All right.
But for reals, episode 61. Pretty right, 61.
Midnight Train.
Midnight train going anywhere. You will hear that joke multiple times throughout the rest of the show.
And if you see
What
us
if I
in a
don't want
smoky
to go
room,
anywhere at all? What if I just want to stay home?
then don't be an LDN where they force you into trains.
It's a bad life.
Yeah.
So let's do a quick
Duly
recap.
noted.
We're going to jump into this one. This episode was, I hate to call it scatterbrained, but there's been a handful of these throughout the whole show where
It was all over the place.
it's not a filler episode. It's more like a connecting piece episode where there's like a lot of little scenes that fill in a bunch of details. So this is
Yeah.
gonna take a minute to break it all
I feel
down.
like the background is becoming clear.
Yeah, and we needed this, right? This is
Yes.
a lot of information being displayed. Anyway, so the episode starts out with they're kind of discussing, we wasted all this, these 4 years in this war for a peninsula that didn't mean anything. So we assume they're talking about the war we just saw with the Mideast Empire, and they finally came out victorious. And the press is praising these Mideast nations for almost beating Marley and almost defeating the Titans and blah blah blah. And so these generals are sitting around, and they basically, they're clearly all Marleyans. And then Zeke chimes in and is like, "Hey, I think we need to go back to Paradise and get the power of the founding Titan." So we get that whole scene. We get a scene between Colt, who we know is to inherit the Beast Titan, and Reiner. And like I said, we'll go into detail on all these things, but they kind of have like a little moment. They mention here that they have sent something like 32 ships to Paradise, whatever. And none of them have come back. So that's a juicy detail we'll get into. Then we run into Reiner again. He wakes up. It seems like he's kind of recovering from the battle. So it must be fairly recent. And then he starts a conversation, and we finally kind of get to meet Galliard, right? Galliard. The two L's. I took Spanish. It looks like a French name. Remy Gaillard is he's a French comic. Whatever. Okay. Anyway, we meet him. We meet Piek, the gal who has the cart Titan. Find out she's been a Titan for like 2 months, which is insane. Yeah, and so we kind of get this. Yeah, we meet a bunch of those characters. Then we see we come back to the warrior recruits. They talk about going back to their hometown. And this is where we get this really hilarious scene of like the Eldians are all in the back of the train, like drinking to Gabi, and it's funny and weird. And what's she, like 12? Like, you can't drink when you're that, like, freaking destroy your liver.
No.
Anyway, so they make it back to their hometown. They all end up back in the internment zone, which all Eldians, which apparently even Zeke, right, like, is disrespected as like filthy, devil Eldian in this episode. Anyway, they end up back in their internment zone. We hear Gabi kind of telling war stories, and then Reiner goes into sort of a weird tale of what it was like on the island of devils. We see a soldier commit suicide, which is really weird and probably means something. And then finally, there's a meeting between all of the Titan shifters in Marley, all the people who possess the powers.
That are in the warrior program.
Yeah, including Colt, who's doesn't have his power yet, but he's obviously will soon. and they basically are hatching the plan to reinvade Paradise. So, like I said, kind of a scatterbrained episode, a little bit, not a ton of action, but a lot of like setting up of like plot points. And as I predicted, just giving myself mad props here. We indeed have another entire episode where we don't see Aaron, we don't see anybody. It's all focused on Marley for the time being. And I think we've got more of that coming up. Okay, so where to begin?
How about at the beginning?
Only my wife understands that joke. If you watch The Bachelor or The Bachelorette right now, you'll know.
She laughed really hard, so that was apparently hilarious.
It was. Gotta love the Harvard grads. Anyway, all right, so let's start with this first scene. We got the generals. They're all talking around the table, and they're like, "Yeah, we basically wasted 4 years on this war to retake this, for the destiny of a simple peninsula." They say that there are two main titans. There are two of their warrior titans were almost killed in the battle. They almost lost them to these anti-titan weapons, and that human ingenuity has surpassed Marley in armor. Fact check.
That's the
true.
headline. That's the headline. The headline.
Oh yeah, that's the headline. Yeah, that's right.
Around papers around the world, not in Marley, say human ingenuity surpasses and shatters Marley in armor at last.
Yeah, which okay, we made this comment. We made this comment before. That makes sense only in so much as like no culture has ever held a candle to the Marleyans. That's what you would assume because they've always had the Titans. Mm-hmm. So the fact that somebody lost in a close second place as opposed to like a distant second place to them means. This is a victory.
I think this is the theme of this episode. The theme of this episode is narrative and optics.
Right.
Not what's actually true, not how the facts are laid out. It's all about narrative and optics. Who sees what, how things look, how it's presented to you, right? And there's a huge kind of, palette you can paint there with the narrative and optics that's somewhat technically true, And so the question is not who won the war. We know who won the war. Marley, right?
Right.
But the question is like when John Jones was crushing everybody and John Jones was killing competition.
I was just thinking almost the exact same thing.
Anderson Silva, right? When these guys, they're the prime, they're unbeatable. They make people look like foolish. They're MMA fighters, just destroying everybody physically. It's not about who beats them. It's about, this guy went around.
Yeah.
He lasted a whole round against Anderson. Wow, that was amazing. And the headline isn't Anderson beats another guy for the 15th time. Anderson, the
headline is somebody went longer with Anderson than ever before.
The one that always got me was the headline was Lyoto Machida wins a round against John Jones.
A round.
That was the headline. The headline was Lyoto Machida won a round against John Jones. Not Lyoto Machida got beaten on the feet and then submitted in the second round and dropped unconscious by the unscathed John Jones. It was
he got a round in.
He won his first round. The first round somebody won against somebody. And so when you are a massive titan, and the headline again and again and again and again and again has been Marley wins, Marley wins, Marley wins, Marley wins, Marley in dominance. If there's not complete dominance, all of a sudden the headline becomes something else.
Yeah.
And if you can get the narrative around something else, the people start thinking, hey, maybe there's a chance here.
There's a chink in the armor.
Yes.
Yeah, it's definitely I said this last episode, but there's blood in the water is sort of the vibe that we're getting, is that all the other nations that have kind of been subservient to this Marleyan nation, which it's interesting that, like, I'm curious to see where this goes. I guess we don't have all the information yet, but there's a very World War II, World War I kind of vibe going on. The show at this point has become, kind of inherently political in a way, because there's a lot of political intrigue now, right? There's a lot of like national interests and a lot of like this kind of racial tension. There's all these kind of like themes from real life that are obviously playing out in this very fictional world. But it's interesting to me. I'm curious to see if we're to find out much about Marley, like, are they like a world? Because they actually mentioned being colonial as one of the things that they've done. So they're being painted as like a colonial power. They've like must have taken over other countries at this very dominant world force. And I'm curious if they are, it would be a little trite. Like it's been done before to be like, oh, they have world domination ambitions. But I wouldn't be surprised to see if there's something like that, or if it's going that direction, maybe. Anyway, so the press is praising. They say this, that the press, worldwide is just praising this Mideast nation for almost winning a battle against Marley. Good job for you.
And let's be honest, they they did some serious damage to the armor titan, almost killed him.
Mm-hmm.
They almost killed Zeke had the armor titan not been there.
Mm-hmm.
But close isn't, what's the term? Close doesn't count except for horseshoes and hand grenades, right?
Yeah.
Like, just because you were close to doing something doesn't mean you actually did it. They still got completely destroyed, and all of the people got captured or killed, and it was definitely still a victory. However, the fact that there's a little bit of hope, the fact that there's a little bit of a situation where it's like, wait a second, the narrative's shifting, people are reporting.
Yeah. Well, the thing that they say here is that there is now officially a very effective weapon against Titans, and that ingenuity, everybody knows this is like an era of progress. Again, a very World War I/II kind of vibe. Like, it's an era of industrial progress, and that it won't be long until these weapons become even more effective and you go to the next step. And they say here that the era of the Titans is coming to an end. And soon, they're great on land, but very soon our Titan powers will be looking up to the sky, and bombs will be coming down like rain.
Bombs will fall like rain.
Yeah.
And the Titans, as wicked as they may be, will only be able to look up at the sky.
So that's this first part is really just reiterating what they said. The last line in the last episode was pretty much.
I like how the Major General guy is like, do we have any Titans that can fly? Like,
Yeah.
he's just so stuck on, we must use Titans, which the General, whatever, McGath, or he says in the first episode, Titan power must remain absolute. Like, they have this idea that the power of the Titans must be absolute and must always stay that way. There's never supposed to be anything that can be more powerful than a Titan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So they got to find a way.
They've put all of their eggs in one basket, which I think is probably not a good idea.
Yeah, well, I mean, Zeke pretty much points that out, and this is kind of the next logical step, which, again, I feel like our predictions are like getting better, because you actually said this on the last podcast that that they've relied on the Titan powers, and that now they're kind of like, they haven't advanced as much as other civilizations has in terms of their traditional armaments.
Technology.
Yeah. Because we know necessity is the mother of all invention, right? And so when you're being destroyed by pure Titans all the time, you invent ODM gear to be able to combat them. Well, when you have all complete dominance and no one can oppose you, you don't have to innovate. You don't have to create bigger and better and cooler stuff. Only when you're in competition.
If you already have the best possible weapon, why try and invent another weapon? No one's ever going to.
Which is why we think competition breeds the best innovation, the best developments, right?
Yeah,
and that's why
it does.
when consumers win, when there's two companies trying to go to war to get the best phone or the best TV or whatever, they get cheaper, they get smaller, they get more powerful.
Dude, this year for like gamer geeks, like everybody's freaking out, because it really has been like 2020 is crappy years. It's been for on all other fronts. If you're into like computers and like tech and gaming and stuff, it's been an incredible year. Great games and stuff coming out, but the hardware, so AMD's graphics cards or processors have just been like leaps and bounds. Nvidia has been making leaps and bounds. Stuff is cheaper than it's ever been. Like, the new consoles are coming out. It's like just like incredible year, because these companies are all competing, and it's like, oh, they're all getting good. But imagine if you'd had the power of, imagine you had a Nintendo 64 when everyone else had like an abacus, right? Like, they didn't even have like screens yet.
I'll do you one better.
Like, go ahead.
Imagine you're a company that has like the market on business phones. Imagine you're
Research in Motion.
Yeah, RIM, BlackBerry. BlackBerry was the dominant player in mobile email. They had a really good setup. They had their own servers.
They sell cell phones, if you can't tell.
Yeah, they had everything well in hand, and everybody who was anybody had a BlackBerry, because you had a full keyboard. You could email right from the phone. You had access to the internet on your phone. Amazing. All these amazing things you had. And you know what the BlackBerry representatives told us as insiders when Apple first launched their phone?
What?
Oh, we're not worried about it. They can have their toy.
Shut up. They said that?
Pride comes before a fall, folks.
Yes.
Let that be a lesson
They
to you.
were like, oh, they've got a few apps. Oh, cool. Wait, guess what? They wanted BlackBerry wanted apps within a year, right?
Yeah,
and then after that, they realized they weren't able to compete in the app market.
And it was too late at that point.
And now it's like,
What's a
who
BlackBerry?
do you know who has a BlackBerry?
Question mark?
Zero people.
Right.
Nobody has
and
one.
so when you think you have the market cornered, when you think you have everything and you don't need to innovate to create anything new, then you don't. And so they're just relying on the Marleyan power. They've kind of gotten lazy in their spot as like number one military power.
Yeah.
And they've been fighting this war somewhere else in this island for years. They haven't had some of their major Titan players. So they've kind of had a really bad strategy and a bad go of it for the last 9 years. So now all of a sudden they realize all these other countries. Now we don't know how many and we don't know where, but at least the Mideast Atlantic or the Mideast Empire
like that,
Alliance,
Allied forces.
Yeah,
Mideast
they've
Allied
been
forces.
really growing their abilities. They've got armored,
Tanks,
the trains.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, transports. They've got
going anywhere.
Airships. They've got a really well. Have we seen airships?
Well, yeah, there was an airship in that battle, and they were talking about it around the table.
Right.
Marley has airships too,
but we haven't. And they've got a really great navy. It sounds like, and they're able to really beat the Marleyan navy. Marley just hasn't really had to innovate. Now all of a sudden they're kind of having to come up with new strategies. Personally, I would be outfitting even more of the Titans with machine guns and like helicopters.
We've been making this case for a long time. I'm like, why can you not make some kind of like large weapon? Like, could you not turn the armored Titan into
give him a machine gun?
You just give him a shield and a freaking sword.
Yeah, shield and sword. But I'm saying like, put why can't I say the dang thing? Like in Transformers. Make him into like a transformer and put like machine guns that come out of his shoulders and like laser guns.
The Cart Titan
rockets,
had the machine guns, on the sides.
Yeah,
so do that with everybody,
exactly. Outfit them with
Dude,
more
people
stuff.
could ride on them and shoot stuff off of them for crying out loud.
Now, you can't tell me that these Titan things. Here's the thing: is I'm just thinking like it's not like there will ever be a day when being able to almost immortal and being able to instantly turn into a giant beast of a man won't be like effective.
A huge advantage.
I mean, that's
any
still
battle.
going to be like, imagine like, like SEAL Team 6, but one of them can transform into a giant that's bulletproof
at any given time.
At the drop of a hat. I'm pretty sure it's still going to be effective.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Zeke points all this out basically and says, listen, what we need to do is we need to reinvade Marley. We need to take back the founding Titan, and we need the headline to read, Marley occupies paradise and has the power of all the Titans.
All the Titans.
So this actually tells us something. You mentioned this. This tells us something about the world that exists, which is, number one, we were questioning whether or not the rest of the world even knew paradise was a thing. It sounds like they do.
Mm-hmm.
Like other nations know that there is this island and that it must be full of Eldians, and they don't go there because they're afraid of the Titans, I guess.
The pure Titans and probably the founding Titan.
Well, I think that they think that all the giant Titans from the walls may still be roaming around.
Yeah, because she mentioned that during their dinner thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, is that just a wives' tale, or is that legitimate?
They could just bring their giant Titans and flatten us at any time, and I was like, what the heck is she talking about?
Yeah, I imagine it to be like, I mean, we don't have much of an equivalent like this now, but imagine, again, rewind to actual real life, like World War II, and imagine, Madagascar, or I guess maybe just the interior of like West Africa or something like that. Not a lot of Westerners, not a lot of other people had been there. They would imagine it to be like a scary place if you'd never been.
If there was
even though
myths and tales.
Yeah, even though like, oh well, we have machine guns and cars, but you've never been to Siberia, so you don't know what the heck's out there. And if all you've ever heard of Legends of Giants, like you're still gonna be freaked out to go. Yeah, sorry. We have a comment. That's a good point. But you have to make large equipment and like
that's
have to be able to fit
why
them.
the quadruped one is the only one with stuff
we
on.
need to get Becca a mic. For the podcasters, they didn't hear her comment, or the comment we just got was that the Titan's going to be the shifters going to be Titans for like a few hours, and so it doesn't really make a lot of sense to like make a bunch of equipment for them. They wouldn't have much time to use it anyway.
Someone would have to haul it out there and put it on. I guess it's possible they could do that. Real quick though, I want to break down this scene. Because in this scene...
Yes, it's very interesting.
This is the very first time we've ever seen the uppers of Marley. Now...
These aren't Eldians, minus Zeke, of course, but...
According to the slides we've seen in the show, we know that Marley is a military dictatorship, which should mean that there's a general at the very, very top of everything.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like the general at the very top of everything is here in this meeting.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, he doesn't feel end boss type.
Nope, I agree.
He doesn't feel big boss type. If this was the real guy, the reveal would have been like, he's waiting. And there would have been like a curtain opened, or whatever.
Like when we met Zeke for the first time?
Yeah,
or
we
even
were
the Beast Titan, as we said.
That guy's a serious boss, right? But if, it's like you're saying, like if he was the really main big boss, we wouldn't have seen him for a few episodes. They would have always talked about him. They would have built him up. It's like a horror monster. You never see it immediately. You build it up, you build it up, you build it up, and finally like it's there. And you're like, oh gosh, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this doesn't feel like that at all. I was like anticipating seeing some kind of like castle, almost like we have in Paradise, and seeing some kind of like giant mansion or whatever. these guys just look like they're cramped in a room. So maybe these aren't the end generals. They're just the generals in charge of this unit.
Yeah, maybe.
And there's somebody above that.
Yeah, that's what I assumed. They were in charge of the warrior program, that they weren't like in charge of like
one branch of the military.
Or maybe the end boss is going to be the other family that was talked about. That's going to be the end boss.
Yeah, that's what I'm curious is. That's what I'm saying. Like the show's kind of becoming inherently like has these political elements, and it's becoming more nuanced as it goes on. Which we'll talk about that family, the Tybrus family later. But like, yeah, I kind of have to wonder, who these guys are. There's a lot of communist / like not like Nazi like fascist vibes going on in Marley, which is a society that was run by lots of different generals and propagandists and so on and so forth. Though there was one guy at the top, and I don't know if one guy at the top. I don't know if that really does it for the Attack on Titan story so far.
So you think Zeke then is the end boss?
Yeah, maybe. But I'm saying the idea of there being an end boss in particular. If I'm honest, I think Ymir, I think the demon is the actual. I think that's where we're going. I think that's where we actually end up. Is it's actually with whatever that final like demon is, or like the creator, the author of the Titans type of thing. If I had to guess, if there was one, what I'm saying is there may not be one. It may not work out like that.
In government. It's best to have several, layers or whatever. But I'm saying in terms of anime shows, that's not how those work.
Yeah,
there's always the one end boss you build up to.
But I'm with you. That's the track I'm on. But what I'm saying is Isayama has kind of bucked a lot of anime trends in a lot of in ways.
That's true.
That's just I don't know.
So we see this scene with these generals and they're gathering, and there definitely is like a leader. They call him the general, right, or something like that. Mm-hmm. And he definitely kind of looks like Hitler a little bit. So
he does.
Definitely.
He kind of nailed that. He shaved his stash apparently, but he says a few things. One of the things, Magath, is that his name?
Magath.
I think.
I kind of always wonder if they're going for certain names and can't quite get them right, like. Zofia, did they mean to say Sophia?
Yeah. Did he mean to say paradise? Did he mean to say paradise?
Yes. And then this is another one. I'm like, should it be like
McGrath?
McGrath, exactly, like an Irish or Scottish name, Mick name,
or an actual general.
Yeah. Anyway,
so they're talking about how kind of the age of the Titans is beginning to come to an end, and they're going to have to do something to stay on top of military power. And he says, the heroes who beat back the Eldian devils, and now look what we've become. Right, so he's got the propaganda as well. This is what he believes.
Well, he's what is it? Don't get high on your own supply.
Yeah,
he totally is.
Totally is. He believes it. So we see at this meeting there is one War Chief Zeke. Zeke is sitting in with the highest brass that we know of so far of Marley, which I almost didn't expect him to be allowed to be a part of that, but he is because we know Eldians are treated differently. He's allowed to sit at the meeting. He even raises his hand and said, I would like to offer a suggestion.
Actually, he says permission to give counsel.
Yeah, permission, exactly. So he's basically asking permission to speak in the presence of this general, which we found out later is a big deal. And then the general calls him and says, yes, Zeke, the Wonder Boy. So obviously... He's not this revered, epic, beast, titan, amazing dude to the Marleyans.
But he has been special for his whole life. He's been special.
He calls him a Wonder Boy, which is kind of disrespectful, but not at the same time.
At least to us, in American culture, if someone calls you a Wonder Boy, it's usually not a good thing. You're normally saying it as like a... Sarcastically.
Well, if you call a man that, for sure, because he's a man, not a boy. But, sometimes Wonder Boy is used as...
Boy genius.
To describe someone, genius. To describe a young man who is extremely gifted.
Yeah, prodigal.
No, I think that's I think you're
prodigal, but
I think
Zeke is a grown man.
Yeah.
So to call him Wonder Boy almost seems a little bit
kind of. Like, he's not. He's probably a grown man.
He at least looks like a grown man. He might
late
be in
20s?
his 20s. Yeah.
Early 30s,
if we're doing
perhaps?
the math.
What I'm saying is he probably got he got his Titan. He has 1 year left in his term. They say that here.
Yeah. So, he says he's got 1 year left.
12 years. From when he got his Titan, which if he got his Titan around, between 12 and 15 years old.
Yeah, he's like 27, 28.
Yeah, like late 20s. So what I'm saying is the Wonder Boy thing is obvious to me. He's been a prodigy. He's been their best soldier.
Yeah, and the general kind of
seems... But he's still an Eldian, so they still disrespect him.
He kind of seemed incensed when he says, he's like, okay, Wonder Boy, let's kind of hear your suggestion, right? And Zeke wants to pull a Johnny Lawrence. He says he's got 1 year left to make it all right. Right, he's got 1 year left. He's going to go into Paradise. He wants to recapture that Titan power. And he says, we got to change the narrative, right? He's talking about the optics game. Yep. We have to change it to say Marley occupies Paradise and wields all the powers of the Titans, because that will give people pause before they attack us. Now we know this last war broke out because of the diminished power of Marley.
Mm-hmm.
People are starting to get a little bit aggressive when you show weakness, right? So you got to show, especially a military dictatorship, you got to show absolute power. Think about like Mussolini, like didn't have the best military, wasn't the best leader, but was absolutely like this big chested guy who would kind of talk in this bravado.
Strutty, yeah.
It's because you have to like project yourself as like super strong, because if you don't, you're afraid people will see the weakness and attack you. If that's the culture you have, that sucks, but this is what they have to work with. So he wants to change the narrative, right? He wants to change the perspective. He wants to change the optics and say, Marley occupies Paradis, wields all of the Titan powers.
Yeah.
That'll give people pause.
Well, it gives him pause, but he says pretty specifically, he's like, that we know that we have to develop these new weapons. We know we have to go into the new age with the rest of the world. But if we can go get the founding Titan power, what it'll actually do is buy us time. He does say very specifically, we're really just buying time so that we can compete with whatever the new weapons are going to be. Which, again, I have a feeling that theme will play pretty deeply into the future of the show as well, because I doubt we've discovered the full power of the Titans yet.
I agree.
I think it's all yet to be
Now, he
revealed.
does say our military needs a full reset. We need to, from top to bottom, like upgrade our military. And having the Titan powers,
we need time to do that. He says it won't happen overnight.
Will buy us the time. So he's got 1 year left to go into Paradis and take back the island and capture the power.
Yeah.
And they say like, oh, you think you can do it in 1 year? And he says, yeah, I don't think Colt can inherit the full power of the Beast Titan.
Which brings up a really good question we'll get into in just a second more, but like, does Zeke know that he's royal? Does he know that Colt's not royal?
We're about to talk more about that.
Anyway.
He also says, the sick exploits of Grisha Yeager must be brought to an end by none other than me, his former son.
Apparently he got new parents somehow.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Interesting.
Changed his DNA.
So
then they go to the deck with Colt.
Yeah. They kind of all talk about this, how this is what Zeke wants to do. He wants to go back into Paradis. He wants to capture the founding Titan. He wants to do it within 1 year so he can kind of bring redemption and a closure to his family, but also so they can allow Marley to survive a little bit longer.
Yeah.
They walk out and we see Zeke walking with Colt, and Colt is definitely singing a lot different of a tune than the generals of Marley. He says, I can't believe a Marley Eldian was able to be heard by the general, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what an amazing thing to be able to speak and be listened to.
Yeah.
Pretty crazy.
Yeah. And he says there's never been a beast Titan, a beast like you in history, which speaks a lot to the fact that, okay, they've had these powers for a long time. And I'm assuming they have like a hall of heroes. There's got to be busts made of each person who like possesses, the stories told of these Titans and so on. And he's like, yeah, there's, never been a beast like you in history, which means there's been lots of other people who've had the Beast Titan that we know about, or that this culture knows about. And it reminds me of the power of the founding Titan.
Yeah. Now,
what?
There's a lot of inspecifics in this episode that you could take what they say and you could like crank it to the extreme. Let's just paint a few scenarios. Does that mean that his power is so strong and he has the ability kind of to command those Titans, and only that Beast Titan's been able to do it so far, and that's why it reminds him of the founding Titan? Does it mean that he's just revolutionary and he's doing these great exploits and he's rising to the high points of power in Marley, and that's why?
Does he mean like he's exerting such power that even the Marleyans are kind of listening to what he has to say? Like there's a lot of routes here, but basically this does tell us that the power of the Titans, the story of the founding Titan, the Great Titan War, we find out that all this stuff, though completely unbeknownst to everybody on Paradise, probably because they had their memories wiped, it is common knowledge, at least in Marley.
Yeah.
They all freaking know about it.
So in the comments, Metapal and Paris said that Magath is the commander of the warrior unit.
Yeah,
Calvi is the general.
Yeah,
General
right.
Calvi is the Hitler-looking dude.
Okay. So they have this, Colt and Zeke have this conversation, and Colt drops this line. He's like, sorry, go ahead.
Zeke even says to Colt, hey, sorry to diss you in front of everybody else. I just had to do it to make a point. So I don't think Zeke really believes that Colt can't inherit the full power of the Titan.
Yeah.
But he had to say it just so he could kind of make his point. It's all about the optics. It's about the narrative. It's about what people believe.
Yeah.
They believe Colt can't do it. Zeke's our best chance. We better do it now. And this is what Zeke wants. So he's trying to kind of like force everybody to do what he wants for his dream.
Mm-hmm. So this is where Colt drops this next line where he says, well, it's not like, he says, basically you've been an amazing Titan, amazing shifter, but it's not like you have royal blood or anything. He does.
Except he does.
We know that he does.
Narrator.
Yeah.
And that's actually not true.
But the question is, does Zeke, because Zeke's response is, we won't find out until I die or before I die or something like that. So I don't know if Zeke even knows whether or not he's royal. Now we know that he is, right? He's son of Dina Fritz, who was the last remaining royal on the continent of Marley. And again, we'll talk more about my theory later. My theory is that the Fritz and the Rice family they're not two different bloodlines, they're just one. But nonetheless, so I don't know if Zeke knows that he's royal. And then so the question is someone who's royal, who inherits a Titan power that's not the founding Titan, is their Titan power, enhanced in some way? Is Zeke's ability to wield the Beast Titan enhanced because he has royal blood? Also, how does he not know that he has royal? Was Dina Fritz's being royal like a real, true secret? Because it sure seemed like it. The end of season 3, if you'll remember, when they're about to throw her off the wall, and Grisha's there, and Grisha's shouting at them like, "Oh, she's a royal," and the owl shuts him up like, "Shut up, you!" He tries to keep that the fact that she's a royal like a secret, as if people don't know that she's the last, the last of royal blood. And if that's the case, then they also wouldn't know that Zeke has royal blood himself. So I think that's my theory. I don't think Zeke knows.
Yeah, and we made the point several times that if they would have known if she had royal blood, they wouldn't have thrown her off and just killed her the way they did, because they're willing to go to such depths to rescue Historia, who has royal blood.
Right. Mm-hmm.
They wouldn't have just killed somebody who already had it, right?
Yep.
The question is, does Zeke know he has it? Does he think his mom was just crazy and speaking LDN propaganda? Or does he kind of suspect? Because what he says is, who knows? Then he says, you'll have to inherit my memories if you want to find out my big secret.
He's like, what's your big secret?
Yeah, my big secret is how I wipe my ass. Don't tell anybody.
Now here's the other side of the theory, though. The other side of the theory is he does have a big secret. His big secret is he does know that he's royal. And his ambition to get the founding Titan is not to retrieve from Marley, but it's to have the power for himself. Is that perhaps he believes he knows he has royal blood, and so he knows that if he gets that Titan power, that he'll be the one in control, even if only for a year. And who knows? Maybe he gets another shot. Maybe he gets another 13 years after that. That's another question. Like, if somebody has more than one Titan power, do
they get added time?
Is there stat bonuses to that?
I find the fact that General, whatever his name is, McGath, comes up right after he says that line about, it's how I wipe my butt, did he know he was coming? Does he have super hearing because he's a Beast Titan? He could hear his footsteps coming, and so he decided to get all snarky right there because he didn't want to say anything to reveal his possible ambitions. I don't know.
Yeah. He asked him, can you do it in a year? And Zeke says, it's more like I have a year left to do it.
Left to try, yeah.
Yeah. And they say, well, all of our scout ships that we've sent to the island of Paradise have not returned. 32 ships were sunk.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And so that's where he says, well, I don't think a single Titan could have done that.
Yeah.
It's more than one. So that means it's probably Eren Yeager and somebody else.
Now, we know that they don't know where Annie is, what Annie's doing, that she's frozen in freaking carbonite.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe they're suspecting she's flipped and she's helping them. Maybe they're suspecting that Bertolt has flipped and is helping them.
Or that they're dead, or that their powers have been possessed by other Eldians.
I think it's probably that one.
The Owl's Titan power maybe was transferred to somebody else, and there's two.
Yeah. The Owl's still, the Attack Titan is still an open question. I thought maybe we get something in this episode. They've revealed nothing about whether or not they even know that they have.
The Attack Titan is on Paradise.
Like I said, I think he was now that when this episode they've confirmed that they know about the Warhammer Titan and that it belongs to the Tybrus family, I think that the Attack Titan was the unaccounted Titan power.
So they never knew where it was.
I think they lost it in combat or something like that. It was just by chance given, through the birth line or whatever to maybe the Owl or maybe somebody that he acquired it from. But I think it was been a power in hiding, and I don't think that the Marleyans know that Eren Yeager possesses both the founding and the Attack Titan.
Because they said we possess 7 of the 9 Titan powers, which means 2 are unaccounted for. The founding Titan and I
think the Attack Titan.
And the Attack Titan.
Yeah.
So when Zeke says that the headline needs to read, we possess all 9 Titans. That to me means he assumes the attack Titan is on that island somewhere.
I think they all assume that.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah. Now,
they assume it with complete certainty.
They assume that it's there. I don't think they know that Eren
They don't really know who has it, I don't think. But.
The idea, though, is that there's at least 2 Titans that are attacking and destroying all these ships and stopping them from returning.
Now they don't know that. They didn't actually say that they were destroyed. I think they assume that. My theory is actually they weren't destroyed; they were hijacked. They were all stolen because they are building up their own freaking navy, and they're gonna freaking.
They've had 4 years.
To them. Yeah.
Can they learn how to sail in 4 years?
Can they learn how
to
well,
operate
I'm pretty
machinery?
sure we saw Jean at the end of the first episode.
We saw somebody.
They're definitely here.
We
just don't know if they have a navy.
I think we saw a second spy in this episode. I think we saw a spy in last episode. I think we saw another one in this episode. Maybe even the same guy. Who knows? But anyway.
Okay. So
maybe.
At least 2 Titans is their idea. Now we know that it's Eren who's got 2 Titan powers, and it's now
Armin
who's got the
colossal
Titan
stuck
power.
in the thing. Yeah.
So basically, he says it's not just those Titans, their Titan powers that pose a threat.
It's more than just Titans that pose a threat. God, I love it.
We see flashbacks of Levi and Mikasa just shredding.
Dude.
Like to be able to be considered an asset by a foreign national military, 2 people. I think that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Now, they're Ackermans. Okay, can we go off into our little side theory right here?
I
Is
think
this a
we
good
should.
place?
I think we
okay.
should.
All right, so we've known for a long time that the Ackermans are special, and that Mikasa, Kenny, and Levi are the ones that we know about. They're special. They have special strength about them, a special kind of like keenness for combat.
Power comes over
How
them.
deep does that specialness go? And something we've noticed is that in this show, no Titan shifter has so far been killed while in human form.
That we've seen.
Maybe
you manga people know of all the other people who have been killed, but we don't. As far as the anime goes, we have seen attempts on several of the lives of Bertolt and Reiner.
Yes.
And Uri, the king.
Yes.
We saw Kenny, the Ripper, try to kill Uri, and he couldn't do it. Then we saw Levi, or sorry, then we saw Mikasa
try to kill Armin or it's not Armin.
Bertolt and Reiner.
Yeah.
Couldn't do it. Then we saw Levi
try and kill Reiner.
Captain Levi try to kill Reiner, stabbed
him
him
sword directly through his neck
and chest,
and he still couldn't do it. And we thought, basically, Titan shifters are
borderline
Apparently
immortal.
They're immortal.
They did say that Reiner shifted his consciousness and pulled a weird technique to survive that Levi attack.
Yeah, but basically we're saying, okay, well, if you can't stab somebody into the hilt of your sword through their neck and through their chest and they don't die, what else could you do, right?
Yeah.
The one thing we know that you can kill them is you can bite their nape, you can take their spinal fluid, and that will kill them or digest them or whatever.
Right.
So we think, okay, this is the only way, but you can't kill them while they're Titan shifters. However, we also noticed there was one similarity in all those attempts on Titan shifters' lives.
They were all Ackermans.
Who we think are the strongest and best warriors because they got this mysterious Ackerman power, this power that comes over them when they're young.
That awakens at some point. Yep.
This green lightning power. But we also know the the Ackermans were the sword and shield of the King Titan at one point.
Yeah.
So what if there's something in the Ackerman blood that won't let them fully kill Titan shifters because of some
kind of like long-standing, like
bloodline or like magic or technology or something that's built in.
It's like androids who can't rise up and actually kill humans, kind of a thing.
Has it all just been a coincidence, or is there legitimately something that's stopping them from being able to thrust that knife a little bit deeper or a little bit faster?
Yeah.
It seemed like Mikasa and Levi were all surprised they couldn't do it.
They were so close, but they couldn't actually accomplish it.
They couldn't do it.
Yeah, I mean, I really wonder. I mean, I also just wonder about the power of the Ackermans in general. It's just interesting to me that here we have another kind of, we assume they are still also Eldians. We don't know if they can inherit Titan power. We just don't know much else about them. And I think we're gonna find out a lot more. I think that Zeke is genuinely surprised to find out that there's such a thing as a race, a particular kind of human that's super dangerous. So we get the flashback to Levi shredding Zeke, and the next one is Mikasa, who apparently is in Reiner's nightmares because he wakes up in a cold sweat and it's like, like Mikasa, like, oh god, like.
So the bloodlines, okay? We know that there was, according to the people in the walls, there's several royal bloodlines.
Mm-hmm.
I guess you would say like, what do you call the court of people, the nobles?
Yeah,
essentially. And some of the nobles' bloodlines stopped them from their memories being wiped, and that's why they were kind of privy to some information. And the Ackermans are one of those, and the Orientals, as they call them in the show, were also one of them, and they were persecuted because those two thought that the founding Titan not fighting for his people wasn't the right thing to do, and they needed to go back and try to, especially him knowing that there's all these Eldians enslaved by Marley and not fighting for them is a pretty terrible thing, and just trying to have his own little island.
I'm wondering if that's what was the divide because of what Reiner's mom says later about
they abandoned us. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we know that that's kind of like, okay, there's these bloodlines, there's royal bloodlines. The royal bloodlines can unlock the true power of the Titans. The noble bloodlines can't have their memories erased. The Ackerman bloodline gives you some kind of supernatural ability and strength and speed and like finesse, right? Possibly only to defend, maybe to attack. How many other bloodlines and royal families are there that have this innate power? It sounds like this family with the Warhammer Titan
is another one of those.
It could be another one of those.
The Tybrus family.
My question is the Jaeger bloodline a royal bloodline or a sacred bloodline that we don't know about, that nobody knew about because they've been repressed? And what kind of powers does that give Eren secretly that nobody else knows?
Yeah, we've been kind of theorizing that exact thing that Eren says in season 3, about halfway through, that I'm not special. I discovered that I'm not special. I'm really just like, I've been gifted this thing and I need to participate as part of the team, which is a great exercise in humility. However, it seems fairly obvious to all of us that Eren actually is special. Like, it is more than like it. Yeah, he's special in part because he comes from Grisha, but perhaps like there's something more to him. Because remember, the first thing we ever see of Eren is him having these future memory type dream things before he even has his Titan power. So I think there's something there. Yeah. So anyway, can we? Sorry, you can finish that, or you want to go?
Just one more question. Did we notice that Roderice Titan moved at night?
Yes,
he did. Yeah.
Which Titans aren't normally supposed to be able to do.
But the Beast Titan
moves at night.
Allows the other Titan shifters to move at night. Mm-hmm. Is there something there with that bloodline, with the royal bloodline being able to maneuver Titans at night?
Interesting. I don't know.
And the night the Beast Titan was moving around was a full moon too.
That is true.
And they did talk about the Moonlight Titans at the end of season 3.
The night that Roderice was moving around, if it was a full moon. I don't know for sure, but
so maybe
feel
their
like
bloodlines like have effects on like the weather and the sun and the lunar cycles and stuff,
or just effects on their Titan abilities.
I mean, the moon is reflected sunlight, so maybe they're getting a little bit of energy from the moon. I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, at any rate, we get to Reiner here. He kind of wakes up. Again, looks like he's in sort of a recovery mode, and Galliard is there. And we get this weird conversation between the two of them, and he actually says, "Hey, thank you. I never said thank you for protecting me back there." Which we're not certain exactly what he's talking about. We have some guesses. So Galliard is the
Jaw Titan,
and he could be talking about the battle they were just in, because the Jaw and the Cart Titans did sort of pave the way for Reiner and Zeke to come down in their Titans and do their thing.
But he says back then.
Yeah.
Which to me would suggest when they were kids, or maybe 4 years before when we think we saw him.
Yeah, we're not exactly sure why he's thanking him for saving his life.
I just feel like whatever it is it would be recent, because Reiner's been back in Marley for a while.
Yeah.
But he says back then.
Yeah.
He says, I want to thank you for back then. And to me, that means the past, not the recent past.
I agree.
It's possible.
Nonetheless, we don't know what he's thanking him for, but he says, well, it wouldn't have happened, or none of this would have happened if I had inherited the Armor Titan 9 years ago.
Dang.
Which sounds a little bitter. It sounds like he was in the running and like didn't make it, and they picked Reiner instead, and he's a little salty about it. But it's like, hey, you still got a freaking Titan power, dude.
And you got it way later than everybody else did, so he has had to wait.
Yeah, but
at least his life gets it.
Yeah.
And then he goes on to talk about his brother. His brother wouldn't have died saving you if I had,
Well, yeah, he says my brother wouldn't have died saving you. He wouldn't have been eaten by a Titan saving you. So we now know that Marcel is brother of Galliard, and that Galliard is salty with Reiner because he apparently was in the running. It sounds like he was in the running to get the armored Titan, but didn't.
And also his brother died on Reiner's watch, saving Reiner.
Yes, his brother died on Reiner's watch, and so he's just like hasn't forgiven him for it. And then he kind of starts to grill him a little bit, and he's like, what
were you doing on the island?
Yeah, what were you doing?
By someone new every single day?
Yeah.
And Reiner says, yeah.
Reiner's like, yes.
He actually agrees. He's like, yeah, that's pretty much what was happening, which looking back at it, I'm like, it's sort of true. I mean, he also saved other people's lives, but like, anyway, people were definitely looking out for him. So he gives the comment, he's like, well, at least ultimately we got the Jaw Titan back, which we, then discover in this conversation that, as suspected, Ymir came back, and we get a quick cut of her, cut in the chain, which looks exactly, by the way, the way that she's strung up is exactly how it was in the
Crystal Palace.
The Crystal Palace in the Rice's Crystal Palace.
Yeah.
Where Eren
was
strung
the
up.
Same ceremony.
Yeah. The same thing in the mouth, like all of it.
Mm-hmm. He called her, like, the way he spoke about her was like she was completely defeated and pathetic.
Like a poor soul, but at least she maintained the power or something.
And he made a comment about how absurd it was that she took the name she took.
Yeah, because Ymir is the name of like this goddess, and he's like an epic name for a pitiful woman, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So he says that, I saw the way that you, so
he remembers.
Galliard has memories from Ymir, for Ymir's memories, and he has memories now of what happened inside of the wall. So now he has access to at least some of that information, apparently.
Which would mean he would remember them going through boot camp together and like training or whatever you want to call it. He would remember.
We don't know if he has all of it.
kinds of stuff.
But also that makes him a very valuable spy because he can tell the uppers and Marley all about what happened inside the walls if it was different than.
But we don't know how much he remembered.
Because he said, I remember all about you from her memories.
Yeah, sure. But I'm saying like maybe he has that, but he doesn't have everything.
And then he goes on to say, you were pretending to be reliable and you were pretending to be this, that, and the other thing, just like my brother. And so to me, that means he has detailed memories.
I think he has some detailed memories in the same way that, okay, remember, who are the other people who have Titans who have Titan memories? Eren. Eren has some detailed memories, but he doesn't have all of them.
Yeah. That makes me think.
He doesn't have everything. In the same way, even when Historia gets some of the memories, she gets some of the memories from Frida and so on, but not all of them.
But here's my question. Is that because they don't know they're going to inherit memories? Would they be able to remember more if they were mentally prepared beforehand?
Maybe.
Knowing that they were going to inherit the memories.
Is there some Marleyan ceremony or training that they know of to be able to inherit more of the power more quickly or more of the memories?
Is there more to that ceremony than what we think?
Oh, yeah, and it got interrupted, and that's why. Yeah.
Things weren't done the right way. Maybe there's more to it than we know.
But ultimately, the stab on Reiner, is you were pretending to be reliable. You were just imitating my brother, as if as if Galliard is saying, you're not reliable. You're just some washed out old dude that nobody likes anymore. You failed in your mission and you allowed my brother to be killed. Basically, this is kind of the feeling that we get towards Reiner.
He doesn't have any respect for Reiner. That's very clear.
Yeah, lots of people seem to not have. And he says that you're just pretending to be like a good dude, right? You're not a good dude. Now, we know that Reiner wasn't pretending. We know Reiner has split personality disorder.
That's why I don't think he knows everything.
And there's something in his heart.
If he knew everything, he would also know that Historia was royal. And he doesn't seem to know that.
There's something in his heart that wanted to do the right thing. And I think that something in his heart is still in his heart as he's come back to Marley, as he's fought in the wars for 4 years. There's something still there in Reiner. And that's what we're interested to see, especially as this episode continues to unfold.
Yeah, there's a lot of cracks in the pavement. And yeah, anyway. So this is when Piek or whatever, she juts in and is like, well, she makes some snide comment.
She says it's not polite to insult people who almost had their faces blown off.
Yeah. So interestingly enough, we find out that the possessor of the Cart Titan is a female. It was just extremely difficult to tell because apparently there's only one female Titan that looks like a female Titan, which makes me wonder is if dude inherits the female Titan, does that...
What
happens?
That work?
Here's the thing that kind of messes with me. It's like, okay, like so we're all getting our Titan powers, right? Like, I'm going to get the armored power. Awesome. I'm going to get the Jaws power, right? And then Becca's like...
I'm going to get the Warhammer Titan.
Becca's like, I'm going to get the female Titan. And then Rachel gets Titan power. We're like, you're the cart Titan. We're like, but she's the female. How come I don't get a cool girl name? Like, no, you're a cart. Shut up. Like, change the wheel. I don't know. It's kind of a weird...
So if
Carry
Gabi
the
gets
backpack
the armored
and the
Titan,
machine gun.
Does the armored Titan have... female
traits?
I don't know.
We will see. I mean, who knows?
Maybe not, though. Maybe not at all. Okay, nonetheless,
we find out.
Yeah.
Back to Metapol's point is that the cart Titan can stay a Titan for long periods of time.
Yes, which I had guessed.
Yeah, because she says about that, like, I haven't been a human for 2 months, and she's walking with a cane.
Because she's forgotten how to walk as a bipedal person because she's been a Titan for so long. And in that, we remember back to season 3, we remember when they're on the battle of Shigashina, the second one, and we remember when, not Levi, but Erwin is there, and he said there was a scout, and we surmised the scout was
what they do. They tell you the scout was the cart Titan.
The scout was the cart Titan, right? And then he says that Titan doesn't look like it just transformed. But we also remember that Reiner and Bertolt were running, and they had to kind of de-transform for a little bit. They were taking turns, so we thought there was limits to their energy, their power, their ability.
Yeah.
But the cart Titan, obviously, his Titan ability, her Titan power, is that they can be in Titan form for very long periods of time.
Again, very utility kind of like Titan, which again, I kind of guessed. My thought was that the Beast Titan or somebody had ridden this cart Titan on the way in instead of horses, that that's what they used, or something like that. So interesting. We now know the special power for this Titan. And this is where I think it's Pieg says that you might not have to fight again for a while. Or no, somebody says it to somebody else.
They're talking together and they say, well, we always end up fighting together, even though I feel like I've never seen you because you're always in Titan form.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully we won't have to fight again for a while.
Now, I think that what they're saying is that they seem to know that the move to go take, they might have inside info like, oh, this kind of push to retake. We've just ended the most recent war, and maybe this push to retake Paradise means we're going to have to sit out for a little bit. I don't know. But nonetheless, they did just win a war.
But if you were going to go back to Paradise, would you not bring every flipping weapon you had with you?
Yeah, that's why I think he has the meeting at the end. That's why,
Okay.
Anyway, that my actual theory is that they don't know about the plan until the end here when Zeke reveals it, but they think, oh, we just ended a war, we might get a break for a while. I think it's going to be like, they're going to be a little surprised, be like, all right, all hands on deck for this next one. So then we cut over to the young, they're not scouts, warrior recruits. And Reiner walks out, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, Reiner! Like, look, you're here, and this is freaking awesome!" And
he's like a hero.
They all idolize him.
And gosh, okay, I can't remember where this conversation was happening. If the Titans lose their usefulness, what happens to us? What was that from? I just had that line written down. Remember
that was from the meeting with all the Titan shifters.
That wasn't until later.
Room.
Why do I have that written here? Well, whatever. Anyway, so Reiner comes out, and they're like, "Oh,
I'm sorry. No, Udo says that to.
They're having a conversation."
Right. Yeah.
Udo's saying that to the rest of them. He's kind of being weird.
When he has his meltdown. Yeah.
Starts kicking stuff.
Reiner tells him to stop beating up the city.
Yeah. So that's when Reiner comes out, and then we meet, Zofia.
Gabi, Udo, Zofia, Colt, and Falco are all there. They seem to all be the warrior initiates.
Yep. They've got the yellow bands on. Reiner's basically like, hey, I'm okay. Like, they're like, oh, it's good to see you. Like, shouldn't you be resting? And so on and so forth. And they're all excited because, like, hey, we're going back to Liberio, which is our hometown. We're really excited about it. We're going to take the train back there. He's like, oh, great. And like, we're going to go to this certain store. And he's like, okay, basically like, see you guys. And we get this crazy, weird, like flashback type of thing. So Reiner watches these young, again, probably pre-teen, teen kind of kids walking off, like hanging out, playing together. They're like the future recruits. And in his mind, he sort of like sees them transform. And instead of seeing, Gabi, Udo, Zofia, and so on, he sees Annie, Galliard, Marcel, and Bertolt.
And then he himself becomes...
Yeah, and then a young version of himself. And I kind of wonder, because it's like they're in the same place or on the dock there or whatever, and I kind of wonder if that scene actually happened, and that's why it's such a similar like flashback, and if he kind of was a little bit of an outcast among his group, because you see him sort of reaching at them like, hey guys, like, you're leaving without me, and like maybe he was sort of the odd man out in his little... warrior.
But he's the vice whatever, so...
He is now. I'm saying rewind in time when they were kids doesn't mean he wasn't kind of the outcast.
True. But even when they were in Paradise, it seemed like he was calling the shots to me.
He was the leader, but I'm saying socially speaking.
Only by default, I think, because Marcel was killed.
Maybe, but I'm wondering if the Armored Titan and the Beast Titan just always are the leaders.
They are
in the same way the Attack Titan
said.
fights for freedom.
Yeah, so I'm thinking that he probably always was the leader, and Marcel just was more of a natural leader, maybe, and he looked up to him, but I don't know.
Anyway, we're sure we'll find out more there, but
we see the midnight train they're all on and they're riding, and we see, what looks like the cattle cars of the Holocaust, victims type deal where all the Eldians are stocked, shoved in these like cattle car containers. And then we see in the next card up, it's like a dining table. It's like very refined.
It's way more comfortable.
It's comfortable. And we see all the generals are there. And we see that some of the Titan shifters, right? The warriors with the red armbands, they get to sit in the upper car. They don't have to sit in the lower car anymore, but they're all on one side. Seems like segregation's happening.
Mm-hmm.
They're acting very prim and proper and keeping to themselves.
Very quiet.
And
meanwhile,
we hear that
in the back of the train,
Cole,
it's a rager.
My boy Cole is there. He's got a bottle of something strong.
Cole cannot hold his liquor. He is not Irish.
Like, let me tell you something. Gabi's the best. I'll tell you what, Gabi's the best.
She saved all your lives.
She saved the LD and she did it, So he's just rousing up.
Be dead without her.
So they like start doing the cheer thing or whatever, and you hear it because it cuts back to the cart, the inside cart, right? And like it's this muffled sound of them going, Gabi, whatever. It totally reminds me of that scene in Elf where he gets drunk and they have like they're down in the mailroom and they're like, they're playing what's the hip hop song or whatever they're playing. There it is or whatever, and he's like dancing, but he's also drunk and like they're doing what down there? Anyway,
so we see him all going crazy. Cole is like got Gabi on his shoulders. They're all cheering because Gabi saved all these 800 lives of people, and they're all like Gabi. Now here Gabi is, right? She's already egomaniac. Egomaniacs don't need this stuff. She's on her shoulders and she's like me.
Like, Gabi.
It's so
me.
weird. It's like when people sing Happy Birthday, you don't know where to look or like what to say.
You're like Happy Birthday to myself. To me.
Thanks. So they go back to the cart. And one of the generals steps up and he's like, I'll go quiet them down. And it seems like one of the upper guys says, no, let them have it.
Just this tonight, yeah.
Like they had a victory. Like they're going home. Let them have it, right? So then we cut over to Reiner. And Reiner's in the back. He's with the boys, even though he could be, up with all the people.
Yeah, he's and so not is it just Reiner up here, but it's also Falco.
Yeah. And
so Falco's not in the party.
Walks over to Falco and he says, they're lifting her up again, like, oh, that Gabi. And you can tell Falco's really messed up. Because Reiner's like, oh, it looks like she's probably going to inherit the armor. And Falco's like, yeah, and then maybe she'll live till she's 27.
Yeah, well, and he mentions the thing, too. He's like, I don't think they should let Colt drink. He's clearly the like worrywart. He's not
happy about the situation.
He's different than them. He has compassion even for the enemy.
Is it only because he had the memory happen, or is that always the way he's been?
I don't know.
We don't know.
Seems like a personality thing to me. Yeah.
So he says, oh gosh, these terrible lives basically we live, and she's just going to inherit the armor titan just so she can die when she's 27 years old. Are you kidding me? Like that's no life.
So that means they get the power at 14.
He says, well, not necessarily, because Reiner got it when he was 12. And Reiner says that. He says to Reiner, Gabi, the girl who adores you more than anyone in the world, is going to inherit your power and live to be 27. Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
And we find out later
that
it's his niece.
Yeah.
Gabi's his niece.
So he says, Reiner kind of like gets this look in his eye, and he gets down, he slams the wall, and he says, are you insulting the honor of inheriting one of the 9? If I report this to you, you and your whole family will become Titan weapons.
Mm-hmm.
And this...
We assume we know what that means.
We think that means that they're going to become...
drugged up and launched out of an airplane, turned into pure Titans.
Right? Like, you're going to become Titan fodder, which is, gosh, it's terrible. But this also seems like a religious or a propagandized, like, piece of something that Reiner has said that's, like, deep in his psyche. And it's, he's like, are you insulting the honor of the 9? And this sounds to me just like, are you breaking Commandment 13 or whatever it was?
Section 11 or something like that.
From the interior, the government, right?
Are
you putting yourself
3
above the good of everybody else?
Mm-hmm.
That's punishable by death. It's like this jacked up, like propagandized law that's been preached to them. And here Reiner's like, are you daring impugn the honor of the 9? How could you? If I report you to the authorities, your whole family will become Titan weapons. And Falco's like, oh, shoot, I better respond with the correct response, the PC response, the rhetoric. So he says, I, Falco Grease, hope to be freed from the blood of my ancestors. I pledge my life to Marley. It would be, inheriting the 9 would be I'd be proud to be an honorary Marleyan to prove my loyalty to the motherland.
Wait, his last name's Grice, right? Grice.
Mm-hmm.
Don't we know somebody else with that last name in the show? Hasn't there been another Grice?
Probably.
Inside the wall somewhere?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, whatever. Continue.
But obviously it's rhetoric. Obviously there's a proper response to the government issuing you a command. Are you impugning the honor of the 9? No, I give my life for the 9. Like they're kind of like doing this religious rhetoric, this back and forth. And you can tell Falco's not into it, but he's saying what he has to say to be able to get by.
He looks scared to me at first, but then he does say, I would be proud to inherit one of the powers. He
says I pledge myself to Marley and I would be proud to become an honorary Marley and so on and so forth. And then Reiner that's when Reiner switches tunes on him.
That's what he's looking for.
And Reiner says, do you want to inherit the armored titan? He's like, yes, I do. And he's like, yes, and you should.
Will.
You should and you will. So it's as if he has a plan to give it to him. And he says, listen, you have to rescue Gabi from the dark future that awaits us. So we kind of discover later, right? This is actually his Reiner's niece. What exactly does he mean by rescue us from the dark future is unclear, because Reiner, for all of his split personality-ness before, seems to have not the same sort of split personality, but the split interests, or the waffling loyalty seems to be happening here as well. Because we get to so it's not clear. We get to the hometown and
Liberio, their beloved hometown.
Yeah, they get out there and Gabi comes out and they kind of have these funny little moments. But one of the things that happens immediately, Colt's all hungover and they're like, yeah, it's not nice to vomit.
Like he can't even walk.
What's her name? Piek says it's not nice to. No, Zeke says it's not to spew Piek's gift all over the train, as if he vomited all the liquor because they didn't know. Yeah, she must have given it to him. Anyway, so this is where the part I want to get to is where he says,
Vice Chief
Falco
Braun.
says Vice Chief Braun, which seems to suggest that he's like number 2 as far as the Titan war unit. And he says, what if he's thinking the same as me and wants the Eldians to be free from war? And the thing is that I have to assume that Reiner's at least fighting that battle inside of himself right now. And so this might be a good point to get into. I think it's a good point to start this conversation, which is that it's clear from this episode that the Eldians inside of Marley think that the Eldian, they have propaganda that has told them that the Eldians inside the walls and Paradise are like these devils, and they're the reasons that the Eldians and Marley are like oppressed, and that it's their fault, and that they have to justify the whole things.
And now, if the Eldians who are in the warrior program, if they give their lives, they can become honorary Marleyans, almost as good as a citizen.
Yeah, sort of justifying their families. Now, here's the thing: is they still have to live in internment camps, and they still are disrespected at large, and they're really just have to go fight their wars for them. But the thing is this sentiment within the Eldian community inside of Marley seems to be universal, even though they don't have all the information. They don't really understand that the people inside the walls probably are allies. They don't have that. They have propaganda that says, no, they're devils. They caused this harm that we're in. But the desire for freedom is still there, which leads me to believe that there is likely still a resistance, still a loyalist movement as there was. Restorationist as there was with Grisha and his crew at the time. And that this desire for freedom that the Eldians inside Marley have, if they get to meet up with just about anybody from inside Paradise, and the people inside Paradise we want you to be free too. You have a
huge problem.
It's the scene from Braveheart.
Yeah.
Ware the Irish
are
running at the
Scottish,
and you think they're gonna clash swords, and they stop and they're like,
brothers! We hate the English too.
Yeah,
let's go kill them all.
Irish, whatever. Never just an island. What do they say? I don't know what the line is, but anyway, basically
something deeply offensive.
That's what I think that's the going theory. And the reason I think that is because of Falco's line here is he thinking the same thing as me, that he wants the Eldians to be free from war.
Can I trust him?
His idea, can I trust him? He doesn't know. I don't know if friggin' Reiner even knows if he can be trusted, because I think Reiner's waffling back and forth. He's had all this time, 5 years inside the walls. He's been back for 4 years. He's had a lot of time to kind of think about all what's going on. We get this next weird scene we'll go into in a second. But I really think that there is, here we have Falco with very limited information, still wanting freedom and thinking that maybe somebody else, maybe he wants freedom too. Maybe we can do something. So he's kind of almost coming up with his own restorationist ideals.
It's got some Aaron and Armin, like I'm dreaming of something outside these walls, right?
Mm-hmm.
When Reiner is in the last battle, he's like, I'm freaking sick of walls. Why? Because inside the paradise, there's walls that keep these titans out.
And inside Marley, he lives inside walls.
He lives inside an internment camp, right? There's walls, and now he goes to Salvo, and there's walls. He's like, I'm freaking sick of walls. Like, he wants freedom, like we all do. Like Aaron, like looks up the sky, looks at the birds, and sees they're free, and I want that. And Isayama is like totally like playing that up. And so here we have another kindred spirit. Now, has he always been like this, or is he only like this because he had the memories? What is that foreshadowing?
Yeah.
Is he connecting to the grand Eldian tree that all beings are connected to? Like, we don't know.
We don't know. My prediction is that Falco is actually the one who ends up inheriting the armored titan. That Reiner is the one who gives it to him, and he actually gives it to him, sort of subverting the Marleyan authority and even the other Titan shifters, that they don't want him. But ultimately, that's what he does. I feel like ultimately Reiner gives the Titan over to Falco, and that Reiner actually ends up siding with the Eldians. Again, ultimately, I don't know whether it's through Aaron. I don't know how he gets there, but Reiner ends up going, no, I want the Eldians to be free. He sides with them, and in that moment, he sides with them. That's when he gives the Titan to Falco, and that the reason that Reiner comes over, I think Falco is the one I think he's the character who convinces Reiner, you need to fight for our freedom. I think that's actually how it goes down.
It would be pretty dope.
It's my island.
It's my island.
What? There was another Grice.
Yeah.
Yes, I know. I knew that name, but I can't think of which character.
Who?
I don't want to Google it because there's always spoilers.
Yeah, I don't want spoilers.
Stuff.
But there's definitely
I
somebody.
I keep doing it.
No, Rachel's addicted, you guys. You need to pray for her.
I just want to know if I'm right. Okay.
We see a scene where all of these people the gates are being opened. All these people are coming in, seeing their families, right? It's almost like a military, like returning,
They're all Eldians, all of them.
And we see, Colt and Falco and all these people, and they're all meeting their families. Gabi runs in to see her family. And we even see filthy old Zeke's grandparents. Oh, Zeke, you've done so much to help our country. And he says, not yet, not enough, right?
Now the question is, which grandparents
you sold out.
Are they his mom's parents or his dad's parents?
But
I don't care, but he sold them out.
Except they're his mom's parents.
You see that's true. Okay, here's the thing is, Zeke, let's touch on this, because number one, he had asked for permission to speak amongst the generals. Number two, when he was talking privately with Colt, he gets interrupted and is like, you Eldians think you can have privacy or whatever by the Cali or whatever that general dude. And then here we see that he still lives inside of an internment zone.
Mm-hmm.
Dude is as
How
powerful
is he
and as high.
Honorary Marleyan?
He's honorary Marleyan, sure. In name only,
still
perhaps.
Has to wear a band.
Still has to wear an armband and still lives in this internment zone. Like, what good is it? Like, how brainwashed is this dude?
Yeah.
And here's the thing is, I think that even he hates it, and that he wants the power of the Founding Titan for himself so that he can be free, so that he can rule, so that he can, right?
We see some shades.
Everybody's fighting for power. Here's the thing is, Marley's doomed one way or the other. Every Eldian hates them. It's just a matter of how they get it. That's my opinion.
I will admit, it is really difficult for me to think someone with a brain like Zeke clearly has
just buys
would be fine with being completely
just buys all the
dominated by
a
by a tyrant.
Yeah, I think he wants to be in charge.
It doesn't actually make any sense.
You think he regrets all of the decisions he made when he was a kid?
I don't know.
But
it just really doesn't make sense that he would just accept being used as a tool and not want more power. Like
so far, all of his actions have pointed he hasn't done anything to help Marleyan's case.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he's a double agent. Maybe he's trying to secretly get that power so he can become the Founding Titan with royal blood and actually
at the end, he kind of plots on his own. Like, he doesn't have the other generals in the room. He really is sort of doing it on his own.
I mean, he is supposed to be a war chief.
Yeah.
We do seem to get, Game of Thrones level intrigue. We do seem to get some kind of, it seems like he's definitely deviating a little bit from the Marleyan code, right?
Yeah, I think they all are. What?
Becca thinks that he's definitely on a secret plan, so I guess we'll have to see. Meanwhile, we see all of these Eldians with emotional damage, PTSD guys, and they're all messed up.
Wounds.
Physical wounds are all kind of lined up, and
the
so
stupid guards. He makes a boom sound just to freak them out, and they all like Vietnam vets duck and cover, and they're all freaked out, and they're like, those bullets and bombs, that'll do it to you. I'm like, yeah, well, you jerk. Like,
they were digging trenches on the front line, and so they all have what would be called shell shock.
Yeah, with bombs dropped on them, and Falco runs over, and Falco is caring about these Eldians, and they say,
compassion.
"Hey, brat, don't get in the way," and he begins to care for some. Now, there's a very interesting shot.
Yeah,
that it looks very suspicious.
Mm-hmm.
Where he cares for one guy, and then he goes for the next guy, and he says, "Oh, you're all messed up," and the guy's got long dark hair.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like he's missing a leg, but maybe that's false. Maybe he's got his leg tied back or something.
It's hard to say.
Or he's a Titan shifter and he's choosing not to heal it.
But
I had thought of that actually.
So I don't know who he would be. There's
but
like
they
9.
say, he says, "Oh, you're so messed up. You even have your armband on the wrong arm."
Now it could be because the guy's blind, but I doubt it.
And jacked up or something.
He has a head injury because he has his head bandaged. It doesn't even look like he can see.
This could just be a totally innocuous, just
but
normal
it is
messed
suspicious.
up guy. Or it could be a spy from Eldea who has infiltrated the ranks and is even in Liberio now.
Yep.
Trying to gather intel. Could be an Aaron, could be a...
Now, on this note of spies. Okay, so last episode, we got a view of somebody who looked a little like Jean, or just had that hair color
sure
at
it's
least,
John,
who was reading the paper, who looked a little suspicious. We got a little shot of whoever that was. This episode, so right at the beginning of the scene, as they're walking into the internment camp, they're meeting their families, they specifically show a guard, no armband on. He looks like he's, quote, not LDN, and he's looking in, and he looks all suspicious. I think his face looks a lot like the owl's face. Regardless, whoever he is, he's very distinctly, he's like, they show him specifically.
Watching.
He's either scowling, or he's watching, or he's intrigued.
I think he recognizes Reiner. It seems like.
Could he be another member
staring him down.
of the wall restorationist?
That's what I'm saying. He's either a restorationist or he's a spy from friggin' Paradise. Something like that. He's got to be one of the two.
Isayama usually doesn't do things
for no reason.
Always a purpose.
So is this a spy that we've just witnessed inside the camp? We're about to find out.
Okay, so now we get to inside the homes. We find out that this is where we find out that Reiner is related to Gabi. That these two families are, that Gabi says his niece basically, and Gabi's telling her war stories, and she's like, "Yeah, so I blew it up." I'm like, "Oh, we're so proud of you. We're so excited to have 2 warriors in the family."
Wow.
Yeah, it has to be a really impressive kind of thing.
And one thing to mention: all of the Titan Shifters family also has red armbands.
Yeah.
Which means they get some sort of elevated status.
Which we had suspected before.
Mm-hmm.
They definitely look like they live in a little nicer home even. Maybe they have a little bit more money to work with or something.
Maybe, yeah.
So
why else would you send your child off to war? Let's be honest.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're trying to get in good with your master so you don't get beaten down and destroyed.
Yeah, but if there's I think I do think it's like the Hunger Games where it's like, all right, like you're going to be a tribute and you're going to be rich after this and your family's going to be taken care of and you're going to be in good shape. So even if you're from District 12, if you win the games, like, okay, well, all right, to the games we go then. Like, let's hope for the best. So this is where they start talking, and she tells these war stories, and it kind of comes up. I think it's Gabi who brings it up. It's like, oh, Reiner spent time with those horrible devils on Paradise, like, and they all start talking so disparagingly. Like they call them devils here, like half a dozen times. Yeah, like at least that
You're
much.
Like, okay, that's the racial slur for the Marleyans then, or the Eldians. It's like.
Well, somebody brings up, I think Gabi's the one who's like, well, even if it wasn't classified, that's not the kind of thing I think Reiner wants to talk about. And he's like, no, I can talk about it. Yeah,
now, his line of talking, very strange.
Super weird.
Very strange. Because he talks about some of the stuff that none of us would, like, if you're going to talk about the stuff.
If you were to talk about somebody as a savage devil.
Would you talk about the fact that, these Eldians sent their children, to fight, like in 13 to be in the military? Would you talk about the fact that there's so much inequality there that the interior treads upon the people on the outside and nobody cares? Like, there's corruption in the military.
Sure.
There's tons of stuff.
Yeah, but that's normal to them, so why would they talk about that?
There's tons of stuff that he could have picked on, but he doesn't. What does he say are the weird...
The worst thing he can come up with is that Sasha in training offered to like share a potato when she had stolen it, but it wasn't even the full half of the potato. What?
If you're trying to frame somebody as a wicked
and he
savage...
talks about a hothead who runs in without thinking. Like he's talking about people
Aaron and Sasha and Jean and Armin.
Things that they do, but in my opinion, none of it sounds very bad.
No,
he's saying the words like, oh, and they're also inconsiderate. and they had a potato and they offered it, but you're making them sound human.
Mm-hmm. And he says there was all kinds of different people in there, and we were in there too. And it cuts back to the faces of his family, and they're like shocked. And Gabi specifically is like,
"What do you mean?
What do you mean all kinds of
all
people?
All kinds." And they're zooming in on his face, and the window shutters when he speaks. It's like a very dramatic moment.
Well, his mom gets up and shuts the window so no one can hear them.
Yeah.
It's like he's reading the wrong dialogue for the scene. That's what it looks like. It looks like he should have been talking about the horrors, and he's saying, "Oh, these are horrible things," but he's not saying the right things there. It's
he's
very
not
strange.
saying stuff that lines up with the narrative about the people in paradise.
He says a lot of extremely benign things, and then he ends his sentence with it's an island full of devils and horrible people, basically.
Yeah, like he's still trying to string the rhetoric in, but he doesn't believe it.
This is the split mind that I'm talking about that I think he still is carrying with him, because it's exactly what he was doing, right? He's like, he knows too much, tie him up, like take his ODM gear. He orders, Annie to take his ODM gear. Let's take off. And then 5 seconds later, he's like, why is Marco being eaten? Like, he's got these two sides to him. And I feel like that's exactly what's happening here is like, they're like, yeah, tell us about the savage devils. And he's like, yeah, I'll tell you. And he's like, they're pretty normal people. But yeah, they're savage devils. You know what I mean? Like he's got this
one time, one guy offered me half a sandwich. Can you believe it? What a devil,
Yeah, it's so inconsiderate. Like doesn't think of anybody else. And so I really do think that, yeah, this is like, again, they're intentionally showing the cracks in the pavement in Reiner. That like the dude's gonna flip at some point.
Steven says that they're the milk drinkers of the
milk drinkers. No, they totally are.
So I think it's
Reiner
interesting.
Has where if you have the coin.
That Gabi's like, but they're all devils, right? And he goes, oh yeah, they're horrible people. And then his mom
kind of looks at Reiner,
freaks out.
And
kind
she
of.
Says,
she like shuts all the blinds and everything and like shuts up the house so nobody could walk by and hear what they're saying. And then she goes off about how the people on the island abandoned them and you never know when they could show up with their huge titans and flatten us all like they're just murderers waiting to have an excuse to kill us all. And
like who wants to go
says
back there?
That they're honorary Marleyans, right? The family is. So they don't want to lose their status and they don't want to be brought up on.
And you would definitely lose your status if you were speaking against the common doctrine.
It's just kind of interesting that line about they're going to come with their colossal titans, plural.
They're giant titans,
which I think the wall titans are what she's thinking of.
Okay, so my brain went crazy for a second when I thought about that. What if there are, in fact, colossal titans inside of all the walls?
Like, there is. We've seen one.
What if the power of the coordinate is that he can control all of those gigantic titans and
I think you're right.
Flatten like what she said?
What if he could just build a bridge out of pure titans that spanned Marley and Paradise, and he could just command an army and walk over there and take over everything?
Yeah. What if that's why Reiner's so freaked out that Aaron has that power because he thinks he would actually do it?
Yeah. So she says they're the ones who abandoned us, right?
Yeah,
they're the devils.
During the Great Titan Wars, when they fled, that there was a section of Eldians that led by King Fritz, we assume, with the founding Tybrus, that he like led them away and left some of them to die or to be oppressed by the Marley. That's the vibe I get.
Yeah, but it's weird because if that's the case, then they wouldn't have said they abandoned us. They'd have said, yeah, we got them to run away, those devils.
No, yeah, she says abandon us.
You can't have it both ways, because if they abandon us for you to be subservient, then you're mad about being subservient.
Yeah.
But if you drove them away, then you're like, yeah, you're the devils,
you're
the bad
victorious.
ones. We were victorious, but they don't talk like that. It's like split.
Well, yeah, you're right. And I'm saying, what if the ambition was like, no, like us at the ends could still be in charge, basically. Like we could have still been the dominant nation had they not fled and been passive. Because that's the
other thing that doesn't make sense to me. If you have an army of massive colossal titans, why are you hiding?
Well, I think that the key is he wanted to create a paradise for himself.
Yeah,
I don't know. There's a lot of things
reign.
I don't understand.
So the night goes on.
We see a weird suicide.
A weird suicide of someone throwing themselves off the roof.
It was probably one of the soldiers that was outside with the PTSD.
That's what they say. When they walk back. So the next morning, we see a Reiner and Falco walking around again. And Gabi.
Mm-hmm.
Reiner and Gabi are walking around. And then they walk by this like scene. There's a crowd gathering. Like, oh, it looks like it was a soldier or something like that. They killed himself. Which again, Isyaman does very little for no reason at all. I think that one's either, there might be something there. And and Gabi's like, I feel like you're lying. He's like, what about? And he's like, even your mom, even Christina, what's the mom's name? Something like that. Karina?
Aunt Karina.
Aunt Karina even thinks that you're kind of lying. He's like lying, basically like lying about what? And she's like, he says, a 12-year-old boy has come back a grown man. That's what seems so different about me. That's what he's saying.
That's why she's suspicious.
But she's getting the vibe of like from the conversation last night, like, what if the island's not like what you're saying it is? So I think that's what she's getting at.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so finally we get to this last meeting with Zeke
and all the Titan shifters and the warrior program.
And there's none of the Marleyan generals.
And
Galliard
wearing
a wire.
Says doesn't look like he's wearing a wire. I think it was the megaphone thing.
He planted something in the room, probably.
There's some sort of recording
device.
Whatever the bug is, he's responsible for it.
But he walks in and he says, "Oh, no brass?" And Reiner says, "Not in this room." Yeah, we can't just meet to have tea.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, wait, what did he say? So he has a meeting with all of these Titan shifters and he kind of lays out his plan. He says, look, because Marley is being threatened by these other countries, Eldian life is in danger too. Like the reason that they keep us alive is because we're useful to them.
Mm-hmm.
If we're not useful to them anymore, they won't keep us alive anymore. All of our people will be persecuted even more so.
Just casually talking about genocide, no big deal.
So Eldian life is in danger. The world needs to be reminded of the power that island possesses. And to tell that story, we need a narrator. It's all about the optics, right?
He understands that.
Because you can spin stories and you can tell things in a specific way that makes certain things, sound very, very bad, or certain things sound not that good, right? It's very easy to put like a little mini spin on like certain words that cause people who hear it, who weren't there, to be able to get a certain narrative, drive the story the way you want it, not the way the actual truth is. So he's saying we need to drive this narrative, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to do that, we need a narrator. Who's going to be the narrator? The Tybrus family will fulfill that role. The family holding the Warhammer Titan, says Colt.
Well, this is Piek. She gives the background.
Piek says the Tybrus family have never sent the Warhammer Titan to enemy soil ever. So we know it's like more of like a defensive type Titan, or maybe they're obviously not part of the warrior program.
Yep.
They're
not part of the military.
They live in mansions. They're
separate.
But she also says that if they speak, the world will listen to them.
Yeah, because they're part of the ones who drove away King Fritz.
Specifically, she says they drove away King Fritz.
Like, they were influential
as if they
abroad.
were almost solely responsible.
Which is a different story than what we heard 5 seconds ago, which is they abandoned us, right? From Karina, from Reiner's, or I guess Gabi's mom. Yeah.
No, it was
Gabi's
Reiner's mom.
Reiner's mom.
It was Reiner's mom. Yeah. This idea that they abandoned us. No, well, they got
in
driven
the Great
out.
Titan War.
Yeah. So it's like, well,
what is that?
It's confusing. It's confusing. I get it. So this brings up a ton of questions. The fact that there is, okay, so first of all, we now know that they know of like I said at the beginning, like, all right, we now have all 9 powers accounted for. We, the audience, do. They don't. I don't think they know exactly where the attack Titan power is. They know that it's missing. They think it's on Paradise, but they don't know where it is.
And they don't know where Annie is. They don't know exactly who's got the colossal Titan power. They don't know much about that.
Yeah, they know very little. But now we also see something that brought up something in my mind, which is number one, why is this Titan power not part of the warrior program? Why does these LDNs live in mansions? Where are they? Are they even Marleyans? Like, what's the whole story? How is this family like aristocratic? And I would assume that they in the same way the rest of the LDNs inherited shame from the kind of the Great Titan War, that these LDNs, these particular ones, inherited glory from the Titan War because they were the ones who kind of like also ended it in favor of Marley.
They seem to be able to hold on to their power within their family and not have to share it.
Yes, so you would assume it's kind of like the Rice family where they sort of like just pass it down within the family type of deal.
Exactly.
Which means you got to have a lot of kids because otherwise everybody gets too young.
Go ahead.
So what I want to bring up here is this also brings to mind, remember Annie? We saw Annie in season 2, we saw Annie's, season 1, we saw Annie's training with her dad.
This is where I was going.
They're not in an internment zone. They're in the woods somewhere. They're like
somewhere
a cabin.
in the woods. It looks like it's their own piece of property. It feels way different than an internment zone. So is Annie connected to this other family?
Tybrus family?
Tybrus family? Maybe? Is there some sort of...
Did she work for them possibly?
Or
like
is there,
her dad maybe work for them?
Was her family granted some sort of service or like status like they were.
That's what I'm saying. Is she part of another family that also has a status? But the thing is, she was part of the warrior program too. So
which means she was also in competition to inherit a power, a Titan power.
And it really does not seem like any of the Eldians who are in captivity on Marley are saying things like, "Man, I really hope we can become like the Tybrus family."
They don't say that.
There's
no ambition
there's not
for that.
hope to get out. They're just in slavery. So there's obviously something very different about this family. We don't know what.
Yeah.
I did notice in the photograph that Zeke threw down on the table, they had a lot of kids.
Mm-hmm.
They did.
And the family reminded me a lot of the Rice family, like how they were set up and everything. Yeah. They definitely have that royal.
Is there some royal blood thing going on there as well?
Yeah. So and also, if you have a warhammer, why the frick aren't you in war?
Yeah.
If your nation is at war and you have a warhammer, like why aren't you using it?
Some sort of a deal or something. So they live in mansions. They're definitely different. And then as they're talking, we see it looks like through the little what's the thing called the record player with the crank?
The phone, something phone.
Phonograph.
Phonograph is an old version of a vinyl record. It's a wax version of it.
All right. Well, through whatever this thing is, it looks like being
that is what you would listen to.
Broadcast to a bunch of Marleyan generals or leaders who've got the phone open, they're hearing, and they say, "Yep, that Galliard, he complains sometimes, but he does get the job done."
I think he's the one who agreed to bug the meeting somehow.
Yeah,
because they knew this meeting was happening. They're like, "Well, Eldians can't have privacy. We need to know if they're going to plot something and so on."
Yeah,
and if I'm not concerned, basically.
Yeah, if that's all we're talking about, taking back, the power for the glorious country of Marley, man, I'm not concerned about it. And one of the generals says, "Yeah, there's only one thing that concerned me."
Yeah, one of Zeke's phrases.
It's called a gramophone.
One of Zeke's lines. Zeke says, "Not in this room," which means that Zeke does know, they suspect, about the bug, which means that there's other things that Zeke does not want said in that room.
Yeah.
Which means he may have, like Becca said, some kind of ulterior motive or some sort of deviation.
I think he does.
Well, they must be suspicious that he does. Otherwise, why are they bugging his room?
Yeah.
Well, I think that they just do that because they're like, we could never have them uprise or, have a challenge.
Yeah, it's part of their keeping him in check. I agree.
But I think Zeke, obviously, if he's not saying everything in that room, there's obviously things he feels that are not kosher.
Could that general have been tipping him off with his comment, "You think you're going to have privacy"?
Possibly.
Perhaps.
I don't know. That just occurred to me. It is a very vague way, but I don't know, man.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's a couple things to note here. So number one, the scene ends with "not in this room," and that's something that Reiner has. The voice that actually says that is Reiner thinking to himself, like, "Not in this room." Like, what is that? Was that really going? I was like, am I going back to this island? Am I really going back to that island? And he realizes. So Reiner, during this conversation, right? You'll note that they're having this conversation about the Tybrus family and about the Warhammer Titan and all this different stuff. And he speaks up and he says, "So long as it's for the glory of Marley, so long as Marley is reestablished as a world dominant power, then we can do this. We can do it." Basically,
yeah.
He's towing the line super hard
because he knows the room is bugged.
I think he may at least have a hunch. Even if he doesn't know that room is bugged, he knows that they always listen. He knows that they always know.
Yeah, you have to toe the line. You got to speak the speak. You got to walk the walk. You can't let them know that you have any other thoughts.
And the same. And again, I would, of course, you assume that because that's what the owl had to do. The owl had to literally kill his own patriots in order to keep his cover. He was so deep, he had to do this just crazy stuff. So I think Reiner gets that, but obviously Reiner's got the cracks kind of splitting, and I think he's thinking to himself, if I go back there, I'm going to see what I'm going to lose my mind. I'm going to see what I knew that I saw. I think he's here's my prediction is, they go back for whatever reason. He convinces him to bring Falco or somebody. Falco goes with them. They go back and he sees Historia as the queen or something, or he finds out that she's the queen, and he's like, he finds out this become this beautiful society, and he's like,
there can be freedom for Eldians.
Yeah, there could be freedom. Like, this is where I belong, and maybe Falco doesn't go with them, but I think after seeing or hearing or witnessing that in some way, that's what flips him, and that's what ultimately through, like I said, he goes, "All right, Falco, you can have the power."
It doesn't look like, based off of the season 4 trailer, that Reiner makes it back to the island. It looks like he fights, and I don't think they're going back to the island. I think the fight's coming to Marley.
I think so too. I mean, if they have 32 ships,
I don't see why it couldn't happen.
They've had 4 years with Hanjay and Armin plotting things with Pixis. Come on.
The next thought I had, this is like my last thing. The Tybrus family, he says they're coming. We're gonna have a special festival for them. They're gonna be our narrators. I think again, he's saying what they want to hear in the bug, but more specifically that he wants the Warhammer Titan to join them. He wants all the Titan. He wants to plan his own coup. He wants to wield all the power of the Titans himself because he knows that he's a royal. He knows that he can do it, and he wants all 9 Titan powers under him. Remember, he said, "Aaron, I'm going to come back. I'm going to rescue you." Mm-hmm. He said that to Aaron at the end of season 3. I'm going to come back and rescue you. He wants to come back and convince Aaron to fight with him.
And the best way to do that is by killing all of his friends and eating everybody. What?
I'm not saying his plan is good. I'm saying that's what I think he's going for. Is he wants to reassemble all 9 Titan powers under himself, having the founding Titan power, and that the Eldians rise to power again in their own way. Again, everybody has the same. All the Eldians have the same goal. There's some very different ways of going about it.
Interesting. Yeah, it's definitely something weird going on. I feel like within the ranks of the Eldians who are in captivity. We don't know yet what's going on with the Eldians who are not in captivity.
New basement. What's happening on Paradise?
So it's very exciting. We're about to find out. This next episode is called The Door of Hope, and we're super stoked about that.
Yep. You know what else we're super stoked about?
What, Eric?
Was 5-star reviews on iTunes and Spotify.
No.
Yeah.
You know what? I was having trouble sleeping for the last 32 years. And then I left Beyond the Basement to complete a Attack on Titan podcast, a 5-star review, and I've slept like a baby ever since.
Yep. You also, it does your homework for you, it cooks you dinner, and you'll never have acne again. So,
can you guys get like poisoning from all the crap that you're slinging right now?
Wow,
hey, if you wouldn't mind, it takes a moment. It really helps us out, helps spread the show. Leave us a like, leave us a comment, leave us a 5-star review. We appreciate you guys sticking it out.
Yep.
What do you guys think?
Especially if you're anime only.
If you're, no spoilers, but what do you guys think of the grand scheme? What's Reiner's angle? What's Zeke's angle? What is Aaron's angle ultimately? And where is the show going? Are we going back to the island, back to the basement? Are we going to go see them have a final show off there? Are we going to go into Marley? Is the fight going to be there? Are we spread out? Is there multiple factions, multiple warriors?
Who freaking knows, dude?
Who knows, man?
All right, so no spoiler section, obviously, but yeah, just remember, you can catch us, if you haven't already, you can catch us live, Facebook, Sunday nights. We've been streaming starting around 6 o'clock. Yeah, we'll be doing the new episodes as they come out, so every Sunday, with the exception of January 3rd. So the show is taking a break. I don't think they really do Christmas in Japan, so they're not taking a break the week of Christmas, but the week of New Year's, they are going to be taking a winter holiday.
Huh? They do Christmas in Japan.
They do Christmas, but they don't do it the way we do, where they just like, all right, everything shuts down.
We need to go. We got a mission.
To go to Japan?
Bring Christmas to Japan. Sounds like a crappy Christmas movie.
Yeah, there's another Hallmark one. So anyway, so that week we won't be doing it, but and as many of you know, we are still finishing season 3, so we are doing double duty right now. We're almost there. We got another maybe 5-ish episodes left. I think that week, the 5th, will hopefully be our last week. We're finishing up season 3, so sorry about that. We didn't finish in time to like have a perfect chronological release, but anyway, it's coming out.
Life, I'm telling you.
Yeah, life happens. We just really wanted to jump on season 4 as soon as it was coming out. So, yeah, catch us on YouTube and Beyond the Basement Podcast. You can find some extra content over there. And what else was I going to say? Email us. Yeah, you already said that. beyondthebasementpodcast@gmail.com. Okay, well, in that case, I think it's time for this to be over.
Yeah.
And I do miss the spoiler sections. In fact, in honor of spoilers, why don't we just do the thing that we always did? These are the spoilers. These are the spoilers. Woo!
Do you have access
it was
to the
Annie.
email on your phone?
Do I?
Yeah.
Do you want to try?
That's always
so?
the spoiler for the rest
about.
of time.
We have an email we want to highlight real quick.
Yeah.
Why don't we? That's what the spoiler section needs to become, is the
comments,
reading your guys' email section. From who exactly? This one? Something about inappropriate dad jokes.
Oh yeah, it was.
It is this one.
Yeah, sorry.
Go back.
From the 8th.
In the dubbed version. This is from Matthew. Matthew, appreciate the email.
Yes.
Yes. In the dubbed version. Now I can't read it, so go ahead.
Sorry. Go ahead.
The episode that covers episode 53. I wanted to point out that the joke Connie makes in the episode differs from the subtitle joke. And the subtitle joke was hilarious because Connie says, Aaron,
eavesdropping.
Your house is eavesdropping, right? You're eavesdropping. But in the dubbed version, he says, hey, Aaron, how does it feel to be under your own roof again? Which also
ain't bad, actually.
Just as dad jokey.
Both awesome.
Whoever was like translating was like, I got this, bro.
They did a great job.
Like they obviously had a couple kids because the dad joke was strong with these guys.
Oh man.
So we appreciate the email, talking about how everybody needs therapy in this episode because they're all so jacked up and Connie is able to
100% true.
Make really messed up things.
Oh, that's right. Speaking of emails, okay, this was from Harvey. He was asking about, he's emailed before, which by the way, thank you for your emails. I really do appreciate it. He was asking about the dubbed releases of season 4. And I emailed him back and I told him what I know, which is in the past, it's usually about a 2-week delay.
It's delayed 2 weeks, yeah.
And then the dub version comes out. So we're assuming that's the case. So if the dub version has dropped.
It is the case. Crunchyroll has said so.
So, but I'm saying is that so today would be 2 weeks since the first release. So the dub one is out right now.
I think so.
Okay, so that sounds like it's official.
Episode
then.
1, and then
this today would be just 1 week.
Oh no, it's next week.
Oh,
it's next
sorry,
week.
Yes, 2 episodes.
Episode 1
week.
comes out, and then the following week would be episode 2. So it'll be 2 weeks behind, like usual.
Okay. He was asking about this because seems like he wants to watch the dubbed version and he wants to catch up with the show theories.
I've been meaning to rewatch the show in the dub. I've never done that.
It'd be interesting. I gotta say though, if you're only watching the show in the dub, you're probably missing a little bit. We would recommend watching it in the sub just so you can get some of that great voice acting. It definitely feels like it fits a little more.
Yeah, the voice acting
the
is
only
where it's
voice actor I think they nail in the dub version is Levi. Everybody else kind of, and Erwin
Levi. Yeah.
The rest of them sound kind of weird.
But if you're maybe you're blind and you can't read, let us know. We will record our own
interesting show to watch.
We would do it. We would record the dialogue for you and we would send that to you because that's how much we care.
Dude, yeah, heck yes.
And that would be a lot of fun.
Okay.
So, it would take so long.
That's it.
I think that's actually it. All right, now we're actually done. Thank you guys. Next week we'll do this next week. No spoiler section, of course. We will have a reading emails and responding to comments. All right. Sounds like a plan. All right, guys. See you in the next one. Thanks again for watching and listening. If you're enjoying the show, you can leave us a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify. If you're really loving it and you want some extra cool content, you can join our Patreon page over at patreon.com/beyondthebasementpodcast. Check the show notes or our social media pages for links to some really rad Attack on Titan merch. All right, guys. See you next time.